All right, we're going to get going here. Before we start, I just wanted to say, to the extent that between opening acts and founder stories, we have some great videos. You can go to coolerbythelake.com to see them. We also have some of the announcements about founders coming, as well as some other things. So if you send us your email, we'll put you on the mailing list for distribution on this. There's no spamminess side to this. It'll just be things related to these events. So we're happy to let you know. Great. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Chicago Founder Stories here at 1871, Chicago's new digital startup hub. My name is Pat Ryan, and I'm very proud to have Shawn Riegsecker, who's the founder of Centro tonight, a friend of mine and a great entrepreneur. I would venture to say probably the most exciting tech startup story in Chicago you've never heard, and probably the most exciting, one of the most exciting, period. But as a B2B company, sometimes you find that people don't know all the exciting things you've done. So this is going to be an exciting chance to kind of share with you what Shawn's done. Shawn and I are friends from YPO, and he's done a fantastic job, built an incredible company, just won the award a third year in a row for being the top place in Chicago to work. So we're really, really excited to have you. Thanks for coming, Shawn.
Yeah, thank
Great
you.
to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Shawn, tell me, how would you explain Centro to the uninitiated, those who aren't users of your product, haven't heard the exciting story? How would you explain that?
Great. First, thanks everybody for coming. I recognize everybody comes for the free beer and pizza, so I'll endeavor to make this as fun and entertaining as possible. So what we do as a company. So by the way, Centro, I started 12 years ago. We got about 320 employees across the country, about 32 offices. So had a really nice growth curve. Our mission as an organization is to automate the entire operational stack of the media industry, and we're starting by focusing on the buy side, which is advertising agencies. So quick kind of background for those of you who aren't in the media industry. There are clients, advertisers, brands, kind of all the way on the left. They work with ad agencies who do the creative strategy. They do the brand strategy. They also do the media strategy. And so they do the media planning and buying all the way through campaign operations and billing reconciliation. I don't know if you're going to ask me this, but I'll just kind of explain that the media industry is about a $350 billion industry in the United States. It is also probably the most archaic and inefficiently run industry outside of government, politics, and possibly healthcare. And so the whole goal was to come in and create software that automates everything so that we can get the people who work in the industry, off spreadsheets, off of, reconciling individual line items, and actually doing work that creates a lot of value for their clients and for the agencies. So that's what we're focused on.
So it's exciting what you guys are doing, and it's an amazing story. I mean, you're one of the fastest growing software companies in the country. Not only one of the best places to work, but one of the fastest growing. You're certainly on the short list of companies people talk about as potential public companies if you chose that path in the next few years here in Chicago. But as you it's an interesting story of how you got here. I think it's interesting for people to get a feel for kind of where the idea came from and a little bit of the background. One of the things I like about founder stories that's helpful is a lot of our entrepreneurs who are successful aren't first-time entrepreneurs, and the lessons learned in those stories really help shape who they are today. For you, where did this all start? Like, what was the genesis of what is Centro today?
So my quick background, I'm an Ohio kid and graduated the university and started selling newspaper advertising, actually Yellow Page advertising, my first job out. Then started selling newspaper advertising a long time ago. I'm older than most everybody in this room. And
that's why you sit next to me. It makes me feel better.
Can we get closer together, please? So what happened is, 94, 95, saw the internet, thought this was going to really revolutionize things. So tried to get over the internet. And in 1996, started putting newspapers on the web. So put the Akron Beacon Journal on, put the Cleveland Plain Dealer, so cleveland.com. In 2000, me and a few other guys started a streaming media company. And they were helping.
What year was that?
What's that?
What year
2000.
Wow.
2000. It was called Everstream. We kind of laugh. No, hopefully nobody's from Pandora's here or Spotify, but we kind of laugh at that because we had that idea, 12 years ago, and we recognized really early in that space that you're not not going to be able to make any money because it's a monopoly. Monopoly. There's only a few companies who control all the music in this land, and they're going to allow you to exist, but they're never going to allow you to make a lot of money. Right. And it was a pretty hard lesson early on. The other lesson I learned at Everstream was you got to time the market. Success is as much about timing as it is about your idea. And you can't go too early or you're going to lose your shirt, or you can't be way too early with your idea. You also can't be too late because you'll have so much competition. Right. And so we look at that a lot.
It's a great point. Mark Andreessen talks about the fact that they were the first cloud company, but it was back when infrastructure was really expensive.
Right.
And so instead it was $150,000 to have a server and all these instances up instead of $1,500. And you look at the difference in that. And having a streaming company in 2000 when we didn't have the kind of pipe we have today, you're really ahead of your time.
Our bandwidth bill, we had over 1 million streamers a month, and that was huge. We were the third or fourth largest streaming media company in the United States. And our bandwidth bill back then cost over $500,000 a month.
Wow.
That today would cost us less than $5,000 a month. Wow. That's the difference in scale of
That's a good lesson on timing.
Yeah. So we learned a lot there. But it's from there that I actually joined a company called Real Media. And Real Media built the first ad-serving technology. So they built them and DoubleClick. They were the two large companies. And they also had a services arm in which they were helping ad agencies place ads on the web. And through having sold locally, done local online, done an ASP model, which was a streaming company, had gone to a services company, it was that whole culmination of event where I'm going, this is an absolutely screwed up industry. Well, this industry is never going to be able to scale itself. In fact, I'm like, it didn't take a genius back in the early 2000s to go, digital is only going to create more fragmentation and more complexity because it would bring the cost of content creation down from where it was. And that would mean that advertisers would have to spend more money in different pockets. And if we don't create a software platform that automates this entire relationship, we're never going to be able to scale it profitably, intelligently. And so that was the genesis of the idea. So it was very, to me, linear based upon all my previous experience. It wasn't like I woke up one day and said, hey, I'm going to go do this over here to the left.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting how all these things shape what's going on. And people look at media and they see the technology side of it and say, oh, well, they're very sophisticated. But you got to be in it. There's a great conversation you have about founder market fit. And your story, as I mentioned, we were getting ready, reminds me a little of Brian Johnson in the sense that Brian really was in that world. He saw the opportunity. That whole inside-out perspective seems like a lot of the great companies, people really understand the problem inside out. They didn't read Forbes or Wall Street Journal or something and get this idea. Talk a little bit about how those experiences help shape the initial value proposition and your understanding of it.
So I'm going to start with business, then I'm going to talk about culture, because I think they're two different things. So from a business side, I had seen it at the local level. I had seen it at the operational level. I knew the problem. It wasn't like I had to go and spend a year trying to study the industry and trying to figure out what the problem was. Mm-hmm. So then it was just more about diving in and executing. The second thing I had was contacts. I had a lot of, contacts. I knew all the players in the industry that could really help me.
And from your newspaper days, your Real Media days?
It was more from, that was some from there, but more from Everstream, when we were selling into the publishing community. So we had everyone from, there was a day, no one here will remember, but there was a day when you could go to chicagotribune.com, and they had a thing called Trib Radio, and that was the company. That was the company we started. Oh, cool. You could actually listen. We had 90-some channels of music playing back at the time. You could like songs, hate songs, skip songs. I mean, it was really a cool platform. Cool. And so I understood the problem, and I had the contacts to actually start there. But the other thing that really, and I think was more important, is I had a story that every company that I worked for, I looked at, and I kept looking up at senior management, and I kept going, why are you all such dicks? Like, why are you all, like, I mean, I literally worked for, I had worked for some pretty rude and inconsiderate people. And so I had no idea, and I kept looking at it going, we all want to work hard. We all want to do great work. We want to work hard. We want to be proud of the company we work for. We want to be successful. We want to make money. Those are all the things we want. Everyone who starts a new job starts out with that mindset. I'm going to love this new job. And in 6 months, the company grinds it out of you. And next thing you know, you're taking smoke breaks, and you're bitching about your coworkers, and you're bitching about your boss. And I go, that's a pretty crappy way to run an organization. So the bigger thing to Centro is that I incorporated October 15th, 2001. So this was about a month after 9/11, if you can put yourself in that mindset. And
The world, it was like nuclear winter. Everything
was dead.
yeah.
But it was the best time in the world to start a company. And a lot of you guys, I'm sure, probably started, in 2008 and 2009. It's really funny because when a catastrophe on that level happens, everything stops. And I know, not to take away from the gravity of what took place, but when everyone else is like stopped moving, you can move real fast. So we had a recession in 2000, the dot-com crash. We had 9/11 happen, and it was the best time in the world for a very aggressive entrepreneur to say, I'm just going to go try something new. And so I just, kind of sort of, we'll talk about, kind of bootstrapping it along the way. But back to the culture. Before I actually started Centro, I sat down and I wrote a document called the Corporate Manifesto. And because I don't want to be that company. I don't want to just build a company that makes money and we exit or we sell or something like that. And so I wrote a document called the Corporate Manifesto. The whole idea was that it was going to be a blueprint for an improved corporate America of the future. And I wrote down, I had to figure out what is my company going to stand for. So I meditate a lot, so I went back and I meditated quite a bit on it. And I came to the idea that outside of making money and returning value to your shareholders, we can exist for more than that. I think companies can and should exist for more than just making money. And so I sat down and said, well, what else could we stand for? I was like, well, we got to take religion out of the idea. Can't do anything around that. I ended up with the word happy. I was like, why can't a business exist to create happiness in its employees? As that's their core element. And that if you come to work for my company, that you're going to be a better father or a better mother or a better husband or a better wife because you're going to be happier when you go home. You're not going to be carrying the stress of it. I don't believe in the idea of work life, you just got to separate your work life from your personal life. That's a pretty shitty way to think about our world. If we were happy at work, it'd be, a blessing in our personal life. So I did that, and so the real quick, I wrote down kind of what we stand for. I wrote down our values and all of our principles, and the thing I came to was the 2 times in life you're happiest is when you're growing as a person. You feel like you're getting smarter. You feel like you're contributing. And the second is when you're giving back to other people. When you actually feel like you're helping someone else do something better. Those are the times you feel the greatest joy. And I took those 2 things. I said, okay, so what we're going to stand for is that long-term success of a business can only be achieved through the dedication to the growth and the well-being of the individual. That was number 1. And number 2 was the inverse of it, which is that each person is responsible for his or her own success, the success of those around them, and the success of the company. And that was the basis of our culture. Over time, obviously, I think, through the Crane stuff, it's worked out really well.
So how do you make that, you're a pretty good-sized company now. How many employees do you have?
320.
320. So that's one thing when it's 12 people in a room.
Yeah.
How do you make that real and tangible as you scale?
One, it's not easy. I'll just put that out there. But 2, here's the thing, for everyone starting a company or in a company that you have the ability to change, to me, it's the most important thing. Okay, you could build great code, you can build a great platform, you can have a great idea. But here's what I promise. Times are going to get tough for you. They are. Whether it's of your own doing or the market's going to do it for you. And when hell comes to you, it's going to be your culture that gets you through it, successfully or unsuccessfully. And so I believe that through shared experience, keeping the team together. By the way, we've got the industry's lowest turnover rate. No one, people
talk about. I think you have an interesting story that I think brings your. And it's always as my COO, who was a 25-year Navy SEAL officer, always says, the measure of someone isn't how they come in the door; it's how they leave when they leave, because there's nothing in it for them anymore. It's just who they are. And I think the same thing's true when you run into any kind of adversity. You look at. It's easy when things are great to make it to be magnanimous, but when it hits the fan, right, and you got to go through. So media, obviously, like all industry, took a big downturn in 08, 09. So talk about how you kept your culture through that turbulence, because that was really heavy turbulence and really tests whether you walk the talk.
So let me share these. It's called Founder's Stories. So I'm going to share some real inside baseball about that time. 2008 and 2009 were an absolute living hell for me. And I always say that if God had come to me at the end of 2007 and said, hey, Shawn, you can sell your company right now for $50, $70 million, which is probably roughly what I could have got back then. And you walk away, and I owned about 70% of the company at that time. You can do that. Or let me show you what your life's going to look like for the next 2 years. And you have no idea what's going to happen on the other side or whether or not you're going to be successful. I am pretty damn sure I would have taken the money. Although I would have felt incomplete from not having fulfilled the vision, I would have taken the cash. Now, retrospect, I would never go back and change a thing that took place. I can say that now because I'm still sitting here. I still have the company.
Came out the other side.
Yeah, but it was just living hell. So, some of the interesting stories about that time were 2000. We went from there's a top line revenue. I'll share top line in numbers with you. So, in 2005 we had $5 million in gross revenue. 2006 we had $25 million in gross revenue. 2007 we had $69 million in gross revenue. So we hit that hockey stick, right? Boom, your company's going on. Well, 2008 gets here. Our two largest clients are GM and Sprint. They changed strategies. We had hired a ton of people preparing for another huge growth spurt in 2008. And we ended up losing $3 million in cash in Q1 2008. So we'd never lost money up to this point in the company. So I'm freaking out. And at some point, it just happens. You're going to get on the outs with a partner. You're going to get on the outs with a management team. And when you're walking, when you're looking, into the abyss, you got to know who's with you and who's not. And so I had to make one of the hardest decisions in 2008, and I let go of 3 of our executive team. And that's kind of sends a shock. We had about 120 people at the time. It sends a shockwave through a company. Boom. All of a sudden, one day, 3 people are gone that was on the team. All right. So now what's going to happen? Well, now we go into a really deep recession. So we don't, I cut expenses, do some other things. We ended up losing $2.3 million on a cash basis in 2008. So I had put a board of directors together, an independent board of directors. Thought that was a smart thing to do. It would help get us through, weather the storm. It would help us show that we were a mature company, kind of prepare us. So I've got a board of directors. Then what happened is 2009 comes. Now, if you remember January 1st of 2009 and how bleak the world looked, we don't even know if our financial system is going to be in place. When that happened, I get a call from our bank in March of 2009, and they say, hey, because we lost the money, we're pulling your line of credit.
Wow.
So we're into my line of credit for $2 million. They pulled my line of credit. I am technically insolvent. The bank could have put Centro into receivership. Everything I'd worked so hard for is just crumbling in front of me. And so,
wow.
Because I was on the outs with some of the other folks, and they kind of started butting up with the board. And by the way, there's a thing we have at Centro, which is stories. This is just my story. I'm sure if you talk to anyone else, they've got their own story on what took place. So because I'm on stage, I can tell my version of it. But anyways, so what happens at this point? The bank calls it in. I've got a lot going on, and then the board of directors tells me that if you remember Sequoia Capital,
Sure.
They sent around this big presentation.
Oh, yeah, we went through it as a company.
Yeah.
Scared the hell out of everybody. It started with RIP and over a tombstone. Talk about sober everybody up fast.
And what was the message?
The end of the world is coming.
Cut
go get in your bunker.
Cut deep, cut now, and cut deep.
Right.
That was it.
That was exactly it. It was cut deep so you have enough cash to come out the other side.
That's right. And they had graphs and data supporting all of that.
Oh, it was very persuasive.
Yeah. So all my board of directors send it to me and say, Shawn, cut deep, cut now. And the rough number was around 25 heads. And and I felt, first of all, I actually felt we were going to do well in 2009. We were going to grow 20%, but I put a budget together at 8% growth.
Wow.
But we cut expenses. The executive team took pay cuts. and we put an expense budget. If we were flat, we would be profitable. Well, now my board thought I was absolutely crazy. They thought I was young, thought I had no idea what I was doing, and so they made a decision at one point. I think in April or May, we had a phone call, and after reading me the Riot Act and explaining to me how unfit I was to run the company and pretty much every bad thing you could say, they said rather than fight with you, you're chairman of the board, can't do anything about that. By the way, the legal right a board has is to hire and fire the CEO, so they've got that as their right. Rather than fight with you, and I owned about 70% of the company.
That helps too.
Yeah, big help. So your largest shareholder, they said, we're resigning, and so have at it. So now, recession, my board of directors resigns. Imagine telling your staff that, having to explain that.
I laid off the board of directors.
Oh, God, but you know
You're
what?
the job, they're out.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, that day was the best day of my life, other than possibly being adopted into the family that I was. That was a great day. And since that morning, I had control again. And it's been an amazing ride since that. But getting through that, the culture is what helped us stay together. It was just one of those things where there was this core group of people who had been with me that still believed in me when a lot of other folks didn't. And there's, in fact, really funny. I just got back. I got back from Phoenix. We had an executive offsite. It was great. On a Tuesday night, 3 of the people, they've been with me now for 7 or 8 years, and the other executives left, and we all just hung out and got absolutely hammered a couple nights ago.
Just so you know, when I see Shawn, he's like, hey, you want to go out from here? I'm like, dude, I'm obviously the old man here because I'm like the 10 o'clock news on, I got to go to bed. He rolls hard.
Yeah, it's part of the culture. Being a bachelor, Pat, somebody's got to play.
Exactly. Yes, you don't have anybody coming in at 5 a.m. going, Daddy, are you up?
No.
Until you're up.